Well, when I first started in the nursery in 1960, end of 64, beginning of 65, the children started, there were two rooms. One was called the wee room and one was the big room. The wee room children, they come in when they were 3, and then they would progress into the big room when they were 4 to do their preschool year. They came in, at that time they were in all day. They had their lunch, they had their afternoon tea, they went to bed. So that was them, they were in for the whole day.
The uniform was a flowery apron. That was the only uniform they had, and it was more for keeping their clothes clean, because in those days children wouldn't have a lot of clothes, so I dare say it was just a practical thing, just to keep them all the same and to keep their clothes clean. So that was the only uniform they had then, was a flowery apron, which they took home on a Friday and washed. So that was it.
And then probably toward the late 70s, the overalls kind of disappeared.
They did.
And when Mrs. Pollock, the head teacher, arrived in the late 80s, she introduced the polo shirts and sweatshirts as a wee uniform with a wee teddy bear logo.
Nursery school logo, yeah. So that was their uniform then, and it still is.
It still is the same,
yep.
Same uniform.
Okay.
Well, when I first started in nursery, it was a bit different from the photograph that we see here today. The windows, for a start, the windows in the nursery, there were 5 big windows, 2 at the front, 4 at the front and 1 at the side. And these windows all concertinaed back to let wide open spaces for fresh air to get into the children, which is essential for children, is fresh air. And but when you walked into the nursery, it wasn't bright, or I would say even welcoming. It wasn't welcoming. The colours were the old Ayr County Council colours, cream in the top, green on the bottom of the walls. The walls were pretty bare, nothing on the walls. The playrooms were the same. This huge playroom which had a partition in the middle to make it into 2 rooms. They were quite sparse, very little of the children's work would ever appear in the walls.
No, it was all the staff.
The staff would draw pictures, and the children would help with little balls of tissue paper and stick all this onto the picture to make a nice picture. But very little of the children's own work in those days. As the years went on, you get different head teachers doing different things. Everything changed. But the other rooms in the nursery, you had the children's cloakroom and toilets, which were all specially designed for them, height-wise. We had 4 little toilets for the 3-year-olds, and then we had 4 little toilets for the 4-year-olds, slightly bigger. The children all had their own peg in the nursery. The pictures, they could recognise the picture for their peg, and they had a mug, a toothbrush, and a face cloth. The head teacher's room, again, very little in the head teacher's room when I first started. Probably 1 filing cabinet, and that was it. The staff room, table and chairs. There's a kitchen. Well, they had the cook and the kitchen maid. All the meals were made fresh in the kitchen. Lovely. The meals were lovely.
Very nice.
Very nice meals, I must say. Not like the school dining hall.
And other than that, a janitor's room.
Oh, the janitor's room, yes. Which at that time was actually in the playroom. Had his workbench where he would mend the toys if they happened to a wheel fall off something here, or
and at that
whatever.
time the janitor did look after the whole nursery, from cutting the grass, which was a lot of grass, to mending the toys, to any wee odd jobs that were needing done.
Cut the grass by hand. He was a godsend, the janitor.
So that was the people that worked there, was the head teacher, your qualified nursery nurses, students, we'd get some students in which we trained, and your janitor. That was who worked there.
That was it. The only colour I think were in the playroom at that time would be the children's tables and chairs. They were all different colours.
But it was quite a drab building at one time.
It was. Yeah, it was very sort of brown and
grey.
Well, the training, you could probably say it was an apprenticeship, because I was employed by Ayr County Council, which no longer in reality doesn't exist anymore. So I was employed at the nursery, and I was day released to Kilmarnock Technical College 2 days a week for 2 years. The training at the college took in well-being, childcare, psychology, education of children,
Speech therapy, some nursing.
some nursing, yeah, with
Speech
lots of things. Then you went on to do woodwork, of all things, needlework. I suppose these kind of tasks were, if some of the girls wanted to go further afield and be private nannies. So they had all this practical training in hand. We also learned in the nursery while we were there. Every 3 days we were there, 2 days at college. And we learned from the other nursery nurses, the seniors, and how to work, how to tell stories, just how to deal with children generally.
You were always being assessed in the nursery.
Yes.
Because the staff that were qualified were always watching you and making sure you did things right and showing you how to do things right. Yeah.
We were also sent out to residential nurseries or a day nursery where there were babies and toddlers. So we had to learn that trade as well, working with babies from 3 months old right up until 2.5. So that was another little tick in the box that we had to learn, and that was hard. That was hard work. There was always somebody constantly looking over your shoulder. Are you doing this correctly, nurse? Are you doing that right? Do that again.
That's right.
But that's how it goes.
That was 2 blocks of 8 weeks each year that we did that, as well as our own training. And at the end of that, Mary was slightly different from me. I got assessed in the nursery. The examiner would come out and examine me in the nursery, that I could do everything. And you got your written exams as well. Mary was slightly different.
I had to go suitcase in hand and go to Glasgow, to 2 nurseries in Glasgow. And from there, I had to perform all the tasks that I was taught over the 2 years and be assessed by, well, not assessed, examined by matrons and head teachers of the various nurseries on the Nurseries Education Board. So that was us.
It was a good training.
It was an excellent training.
Make a toy, make a story, do have a knitted thing, you know, a big variety. It was a good training you got. Yeah.
But woodwork. Okay. Oh well, as a child, I started in Dalry Nursery School in 1952, a long time ago, and from then on, I think it was just a matter of I liked what I was doing at nursery school. When I went into school, I think that wee seed just kind of grew and grew and grew, and all through school, the only thing I wanted to do was become a nursery teacher. So in 1965. I went in to the nursery and I was there for 44 years.
Okay. Well, in my case, I've just always loved children. I think it started with my pram and doll when I was wee. And as I got older, I used to plague the neighbours. If they'd a new baby or a toddler, could I take them a walk? And I used to do that. So it was a natural choice for me to go in and I think be a nursery nurse. And I was lucky to have a job that I loved. Every minute of the day, all the time I did the job. And I started in 1969, so that was over 30 years I did the job.
Well, right up until about the middle 70s, the children came in the morning. There were 60 children in the nursery. And they were there, they came in at 9 o'clock in the morning and they left at about 3:45 in the afternoon. They were there the whole day, those children.
Yeah.
Up until that happened, as I say, they had their lunch in there and then their sleep. And then sort of mid-70s, that was stopped. There was only one room who still took in children for the whole day, and the other room took children in the morning, and then another lot came in the afternoon. That went on up until late 70s.
I actually thought it was there longer
It
than that.
might have been.
Because I don't remember the full-time room too long, but...
No, well, it might have been. The 70s anyway.
They'd all be part-time by the mid-70s, I think.
Aye. But, and then, as I say, the part of there was such a biz for the nursery, because every year when it was the enrollment, the mums would queue up from before 9 o'clock in the morning, and the queue would be right down the nursery drive, waiting to get their children's name in. And at that time, it was first come, first served. The first 60 names got into the nursery. Then there was a waiting list. So as this happened, we thought, right, okay, that's why it went on to part-time nursery.
And we could take more children
in the morning and the afternoon, so we could take in more children.
So to start with, it was full-time, all day, and then after that, they came in the morning, and different children came in the afternoon. Okay.
And a normal day. Well, was there ever a normal day in the nursery? Early on, when it was still the full-time nursery, I can go back to this one, I think, 9 o'clock, children were dropped off. Now, at those days, the parents were not allowed into the nursery. The children got put in the door, sent into the cloakroom,
took them off.
bye-bye. That was it. Staff took them, helped them with their coats and their shoes, and popped them into the playroom. But they went into the nursery, so up until about 9:45 in the morning, the children had free play on big apparatus, chutes or bikes, and there were dolls' prams out, climbing frames, lots of big things for them to play on. So they would get their free play, get everything out of their system first thing in the morning. Then after that, probably around about, as I say, about 9:45, that would be cleared away, and the children would be given the dreaded cod liver oil. Oh joy.
Yeah.
In the winter times, they got cod liver oil 3 times a week, and in the summer, they had cod liver oil twice a week, and the alternate days was orange juice. About 9:55 in the morning, the children would put their chairs into a circle, and they would have what we all called ring time, where they would sing and do some action songs, did that. And then about 10:30, table time, where the children, that's when they did their work. They didn't think they were working, they thought they were playing. But that's when the staff would sit down with a wee group at the table and work away with them. And we sort of knew everything about these children in these wee groups.
But in those days, there wasn't such a lot of toys. I mean, it would be plasticine, it would be chalkboards, it would be jigsaws, drawing, things like that. I mean, we'll tell you as we go on how it progressed, but in those times it wasn't such a lot of toys, but they were still learning and they were still very well behaved and they still had a great enjoyment, although they didn't have a lot of toys.
So with table time, or they could be outside playing as well at that time in the morning. And then at 11:45 every day, they got ready for their lunch. Inside, they were taken to the cloakroom, very organised. The children all went a wee train through to the cloakroom, washed their hands, got to the toilet first, obviously, went, wash their hands, back into the playroom, sat at their tables, and they're ready to sing their grace. And usually the head teacher or one of the nursery nurses would play the piano, and they would sing, "Thank you for the world so sweet." Lunch was served. They would help to clear up, and back to the cloakroom again. They were toileted again, teeth brushed, then back to the playroom, into bed for the nap. So they had an hour for a nap in the afternoon between 1 and 2. And then up again, rise and shine again, and you'd give them some energetic activity.
Outside.
And outside again.
Weather permitting, it was always weather permitting.
And those days, the weather permitting. Nowadays, they go outside in any weather. But the children would also, they'd help to lift their beds. They folded their blanket, lifted their bed, and brought it over to the staff to put into the cupboard. So they were very independent. They could do all these things. 3 o'clock again was tea time, where they got a drink of milk and a biscuit. And then about 3:30, story time, coats on and home. Their mums would come and the children were called out. Again, parents were never allowed into the playroom unless invited, which was seldom.
Change days.
Change days.
So that was really what the day was like in the old nursery.
The old nursery,
when it was
yes.
a full day, when the children were in all
The
day.
part-time was it was different because you had to condense a whole day into half a day for the children. The bedtime had gone, the lunches had gone, so the snack in the morning was an ongoing. They could go any time in the morning for their snack.
Right.
Outside again, if the weather was good, we just opened the doors and the whole playroom would just go outside, toys, tables, the lot, and we would work outside if possible in good weather.
And latterly too, they went outside no matter what the weather was
Yeah.
like, because we got them all weather gear to put on, so they could go out any time, and it was a free flow. You know, if they wanted to go out, they went out, and there was a member of staff out with them.
Well, when I started in 64, 65, there's been huge changes in the nursery. Changes to the building itself, outside and inside. Things changed from 2 playrooms to eventually just been 1 playroom. The partition was taken away, which we objected to at the time, but I think health and safety got the better of us because it was getting dangerous. So that was a big change for a start. The way that we worked with the children changed. As before, we had time to sit with a group of children at a table and talk to them. You would listen to them. You get so much out a group of 4 or 6 children. It was a good way of getting to know your children inside out, basically. But later on, new methods came and the children had more choices.
It was very much children-led.
It was children-led, yes. At one point, the children were allowed to go and choose whatever they wanted to play with. Big mistake.
Well, you can imagine all the children were choosing different things, and then
If you had 20,
it just was a bit of
20 children in your
a
room.
mix-up.
Yes, 20 children in your room, and they all want to go to the jigsaw. Now there could be about 24 jigsaws left out on the floor or on tables, undone. Nightmare, trying to place all these jigsaws together again.
So they still did get choices, but from a limited selection.
Yes.
And we did work to a curriculum as well, so there was certain things we did have to cover, obviously, and they learned through their play just the same, but it became from quite a drab nursery school, I would say, to a very cosy, colourful nursery school.
Homely nursery school.
Yeah. And then it was the children's pictures that was up then, it wasn't the staff pictures that was up.
Everything was up there. And then, of course, we all had the sort of cultural shock of IT when it was introduced. Not having a clue about IT, I had to learn like the children.
The children probably took to it better than us.
Probably.
Our first reaction was, you're giving nursery children computers. I mean, that's what it was like then, you couldn't believe it.
So all these Apple computers arrived in the nursery and we just kind of looked at them and said, what do we do here? Anyway, we got there, and as the years went on, the computers got better and bigger. And
the staff managed to learn how to work them, as well as the children.
Then there was the interactive board. Anyway, we had that, so we had to combat that as well. We had some good programmes with that. Yeah. And the children liked it because it was a touch. They could touch the screen and they could work out the programme for maths or colours or shapes, anything at all. It was great.
All educational.
There was also, we had little robots that could run on the floor, and the children had to program these wee robots, the bee-bots. I loved the bee-bots. and they had a sort of design, a road with it put down on the floor, and you could program them to go 2 stages up and or turn left or turn right and see if they could get to their destination. They were very good. They got that eventually. They did well. We did walkie-talkies. They went outside in their bikes to play. We had a two-seater bikes, which the children called the taxi. And they would have the headset on, and the controller at the taxi would say, right, okay, a taxi to. And the children were quite inventive for this. Yes. Uh-huh. The taxis would come, can I get a taxi to Edinburgh, please? Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, okay. How much is that going to cost me? Oh, 5 pence. I said, we'll take it. So they learned, we learned along with them when we did IT work.
From listening to Mary there, you can see there was a bigger selection of toys, not just
huge,
in technology,
huge.
But in everything. There was a massive amount of toys compared to what we used to have. A great big selection of educational toys, which was needed, you know. And in this day and age, when the children first came to us at the beginning, this was their first experience probably of leaving their mums, of experiencing dough, paint, paper mache, clay, anything like that, baking with you.
Yep.
And now it's when they're coming to us, they'd all experienced that before at playgroups or with their parents. Or they were so, I suppose, more ahead, you know, of the game kind of thing that way. So we had to then up our game, you know, and take them forward a bit more from that.
That's
so
right.
it did change massively for us, and you're always trying to be ahead of them and, you know, give them more to do, more to learn. We also had a lot of things like entertainers coming in. We had mini beasts, we had trips, we had themes that we used to work on. We never ever did any of this. Plays at Christmas, which was the big event at Christmas time. The children
the big production,
having their nativity play, which was a lot of work, but very enjoyable. So there was really a lot of changes, a massive amount of changes. And as well as that, the parents get more involved. Instead of leaving their child at the door, the parents were allowed to come into the nursery and into the playroom, and then encouraged to come and stay and help if they wanted, you know, or work with their children.
See, with all this, all the more work that we put on meant more work for the staff as well, because every child, when every child had to be monitored. When we first started, back in the dinosaur days, we knew every child so well that we had a little book, a jotter. Every child's name was in this jotter, and we called it the tick book because we had a red section, blue section, green section, yellow section. And whenever the children could do anything that we asked them to do, they would get a wee tick. So the very forward children, very clever children, would almost have the red tick, the red sign in the first term would be full. If not, that would go into the next term, to the green line or the blue line. And by the end of the year, you knew exactly where your children stood and what work you still had to do with them before they went into primary school. So it was a lot more for the staff as well. But as I say, there's still a place. Is there still a place in the nursery for a blackboard and chalk?
Probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of big changes. We really have. And not all for the better, but we have seen a lot of changes. Yeah. Well, I personally was very sad. We really didn't want a new nursery, and we didn't want to move. The old nursery had such a cosy feeling, and everybody felt at home, and we'd been there so long, so I suppose it was progress, but we didn't want to move. We felt very sad. It was the end of an era.
Saddest day of my life.
So Mary was worse than me.
Yeah. Ooh, well, funny memories.
Well, here's a story not everybody might know about.
No. The nursery had a ghost, and we called her Betty. We don't know who the ghost was, but there were some strange happenings in the nursery. One night the head teacher, as I said, she had sitting in her office about 6 o'clock in the evening. Doors were all locked, windows locked, it was dark outside, and suddenly the inside glass doors began to move. And she's up and she says, "Who's there?" And these two doors are swinging backwards and forwards as though somebody was there. That was her first experience with the ghost. But the staff were in the corridor one night, one time, all of a sudden the lights went off, there was strip lighting down the corridor, and these lights went off one at a time. There's only one switch that puts all the lights off at the one time, and these lights went off one at a time. They came back on one at a time, and nobody had touched the switch. What else did?
The music came on. We used to have a tape
recorder, and all of a sudden the tape recorder started playing.
And we turned around thinking one of the children must have touched it, and nobody was near it. So that was another experience.
Things would go missing in the nursery, and as a year later they would turn up.
So believe it or not, we don't know.
We don't know, but we think there was a ghost, and we called her Betty. She was a nice ghost.
But she didn't go to the new nursery school with us.
No, we did invite her, but no, she didn't come. Don't know where she would go. But she's now under the AstroTurf. Because that's where the old nursery was, where the AstroTurf is.